Hello, I wanted to make this video about the importance of mental diet and what we allow into our psyche. Now, we always hear a lot about, physical diet and what we should be eating, what we should not be eating, what we should be drinking, not drinking, etc., etc., all the physical kind of toxins that we shouldn't be putting into our bodies. And that's all very good and well. But I think often we don't talk so much about what we put into our minds, because I think mental diet, as Neville Goddard referred to it, Neville Goddard is a mystic that was alive during the early part of the 20th century. I think he died in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. But he was a mystic, and he spoke a lot about the mental diet and how important it was to be aware of what you're putting into your mind and the things that you're entertaining. And obviously, back in his day, that telly was relatively new, and it wasn't just something you'd sit and watch for hours on end, in the evening. There would be a lot more kind of space, I suppose, and a lot more, I think what I'm trying to say is I think back in the day, perhaps, where there was more space, less technology, less Netflix and that sort of thing, there was probably more time to reflect and have a bit more space and not just consume, all the time, whether that's through Netflix or social media or whatnot. But we tend to just allow things in without really thinking about it. And I think Netflix is a classic example of just, binge watching. And I think a lot of the stuff on Netflix and similar platforms is actually really quite detrimental to the mind. And I don't think we give that enough credit. I think we just think, oh, well, watching telly is normal, it's not real, but I think our subconscious mind actually does take it as real, whether we realise that or not. Our subconscious mind is sensitive. It's sensitive to emotions, to music, to words, and all of that's just kind of going in, and we're not really thinking about it. And then we might wonder why we feel kind of rotten afterwards, or in a bad mood the next day, or reactive, or anything else, because I think we're consuming so much drama, so much, being conditioned so much really with Netflix and things like that. And I just think it's important to be aware of the effect that it might be having on your life, because I think being healthy in terms of what you eat is one thing, but really, I would arguably say the most important thing is to be aware of what's going in up here. I just know from my personal experience, and I have done a lot of binge watching, Netflix and all the rest of it, social media scrolling, all that sort of thing. I've done so much of it, for sure. I've very much partaked in all of that. And I just notice more and more and more now, I notice the negative impact it has on me. And true, I am a sensitive person, and I'm easily kind of rocked, I guess, which I don't see as a bad thing, actually. Like, for example, I was actually not subjected to, but I was kind of put in front of things like horror films and stuff from a very young age. So I feel like maybe that wasn't very good for me. I definitely don't think it was particularly good for me. And I was also quite a sensitive human being as it was. And now, for example, I can't go near a horror film. I can't go near anything that is heavily psychological or graphic, in gory detail and violence and things like that. I categorically kind of steer clear of those really overtly kind of violent, heavy, dark films. But there are sort of things that aren't quite as dark and negative, but they're a bit more subtle. But I still feel like anything that leaves you feeling slightly tainted after watching it is a sign that it's no good for you. And oftentimes I might watch something which isn't exactly gruesome or gory or anything like that, and not too sort of twisted or dark, but it will still subtly leave me kind of feeling like I've been messed with in some way, like slightly tainted. And I think that's a very good sign to know that, it's not good for you, basically. It's like when you eat something and you feel the effects of eating it afterwards, it gives you a tummy ache or whatever. makes you feel heavy, you know that your body doesn't particularly like that particular food. And I think it's really important to listen to that with regard to the mental diet as well. And like I say, Neville Goddard spoke about this concept a lot, the mental diet. And actually it was his only focus was the mental diet. He didn't give any credence to physical diet or anything like that. He said that everything was in the mind, and you know, what we get, what was in our subconscious mind was what was gonna, you know, materialize in the exterior world. You know, and obviously you can use that to your advantage. So you know, he was all about using your imagination to create, you know, what it is that you want in life. But yeah, coming back to the slightly negative side of consuming things that make you feel a little bit off, I just think that kind of really goes into the subconscious mind and affects our day-to-day life. It affects the way we react to people. It affects the choices that we make. And I don't know, you might think, oh, that's ridiculous, you know, none of it's real. It doesn't matter at all. But I would strongly sort of say that it very much does matter, but maybe in ways that you're not able to perceive. Like maybe you're not noticing like how it's actually making you feel. Maybe you're so used to watching things like that or consuming stuff like that you don't realize the impact that it's actually having. And the fact is that when you're sitting back watching something, kind of in a bit of a daze, just kind of taking stuff in, even like with the news, it's just kind of going right into the subconscious mind. And I personally believe that it's true that, you know, what's in your subconscious mind is what's going to kind of guide your everyday actions and experience of life. So I think it's actually really important now more than ever before to declutter all of that stuff and to stop consuming all of this stuff on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Netflix. You know, all the kind of negative stuff that makes you feel like there's everything wrong with the world. I think it's important to, you know, treat it like a diet. You treat it like a healthy diet. You just want to put the stuff in your mind that's going to make you feel good, and that's going to make your life better and your experience of life better, and therefore the experience of the people around you better. So you're just going to have a positive effect on your immediate environment and the people around you, your family, your friends. It's just going to ripple out to the rest of the world, as it does, like a kind of like the butterfly effect. You know, it just ripples outwards. And I think it's quite interesting, you know, television, which can be broken down to tell a vision. And I think it's true that the television is telling you a vision to kind of take on board. And I'm really talking about this because I am one of those people who is very, very sensitive to that, probably quite possibly because I was exposed to a lot of like horror films and things when I was very young, and kind of didn't really think much about it at the time, but was aware obviously that it wasn't making me feel particularly good. But I wasn't able to reason that, oh, it's probably because I'm watching this horror film. You know, I was too young, and it was just kind of normal for me to be watching those films, like in part of the family environment. I think people are a bit more like conscious of that now, and they don't want their children to be watching anything, you know, too violent or too dark. The ratings on films, even films that are rated 12, I'm actually like shocked sometimes at this stuff, at the content that's in those programs, and just, you know, wouldn't want any child to be watching anything like that, you know, not until they're at an age where they can actually look at it objectively and process it and consciously and say, you know, that's not normal. You know, I don't think anyone should be watching things that make them feel off at all or slightly rotten afterwards. You know, certainly not with children too, you know, to be watching things that are gonna make them feel unpleasant in some way. So yeah, even films, programs that are rated at 12 or 15, I think can be really quite horrific and dark, even with those ratings. And I think because it's got the 12 mark on it, we think, oh, well, whatever's in that program is going to be absolutely fine. But actually, lots of the times, and I've noticed this myself, is that they're actually, having the 12 rating doesn't make them at all good to watch. And they can still make you feel pretty bad. And it's all the drama that are in these films and programs And it just feeds into this kind of pain body, as Eckhart Tolle would call it, of drama and kind of suffering, and it kind of conditions the mind. And I think we're not really aware that that's happening, but it is happening. I think there's not enough kind of awareness around, what we put in to our bodies, whether that's food or thoughts or images or words and, everything that's in films and social media. There's not enough awareness around how that actually impacts you. And it's this constant need for distraction as well. I think that's what the telly, for example, offers, is that it's a constant distraction from this kind of now moment, from this everlasting now moment that we're all in. Although we might say that we like peace and quiet, we might be peaceful and quiet for a moment, but then we're very much looking for the next kind of, the mind is looking for a next distraction, and that's normally in the form of a Netflix program or something like that, or it could be in the form of, your next meal or your next snack. It's very similar to us just constantly looking, and I'm talking from personal experience here, I think everyone looks for distractions in different ways. So this is kind of like how I might look for a distraction, is either through a program on telly or the next piece of food that I'm going to eat or something like that. And so I think it comes back to our sort of inclination towards wanting to be distracted, because I feel like we're almost afraid of this moment, of this alive now moment where everything exists. We're constantly planning the next thing. We've always got an agenda. Like, this moment can't just be empty of agenda. It was like we have to be achieving something or doing something, even if that's watching a TV program. At least that's achieving something, even if it's just a bit of entertainment or distraction. So I feel like we really do try and avoid this present moment at all costs, and it's especially difficult in this day and age because we're almost taught that distraction is normal, and we're taught that we always have to be achieving something. We can't just be here now not achieving anything. It's like, it's sort of kind of unheard of unless you're, sitting up as a yogi in the Himalayan mountains or something. So I think that's just something to consider, that we don't really give ourselves a chance, or at least I haven't always given myself a chance to just be, just to be in the moment. Sometimes I think I might be having a being moment, but I'm actually just thinking about what I need to do next, or what and all these other sorts of things. So I guess that's why meditation is so helpful, because it forces us to kind of stop all of that and just be present, with ourselves and with this kind of incredible mystical moment of now, where no words or anything can kind of get close to it. It's just completely sort of mystical experience in a sense, like that can't be boxed up. But it does get boxed up because that's what we do. We're constantly boxing every moment up into, like, I've got to go and achieve this, or I've got to do that, I've got to go and eat some food now, I want to go and watch telly. It's just constant. There's no stopping. And like I say, I am just talking from my own personal experience, so I'm sure there's a few of you who can relate to it out there, who can relate to that sense of like constantly escaping this now moment in some way. And of course we all want to be happy and joyful and peaceful, but yet we struggle so deeply just to be present. We're almost conditioned to look for peace and happiness in the next action, in the next moment, rather than just in this moment now, wherever we are. Anyway, going back to, what we consume mentally, my advice would be, if you are struggling mentally or with your moods or with any sense of like discontent, I would definitely say to just be aware of your mental diet, like what it is you're putting in. Like, what you're eating could be another thing as well, what your diet is like, but I'm mainly talking about what you're putting in mentally through, the television, social media, everything else. Like, just ask yourself, like, what am I consuming, and where can I kind of make some changes there and like stop consuming certain things, maybe open that up completely so that it's just a time for just being present. And I would just, if you are going to watch things and consume things, just make sure that they make you feel good, and they inspire you and make you feel peaceful and happy. So that's pretty much all I want to say today. I hope it hasn't been too scattergun a message, but the message I want to sort of leave you with is to just be aware of your mental diet, because I know from my personal experience it really matters what I watch and what I consume. And I think we're led to believe that, of course, it doesn't matter, it's just television, it's just whatever, it's not having an effect on you, but it really does. I would say just if you are watching something and you think it might be affecting you negatively, just maybe pause it and pause the program, pause whatever it is you're doing, and just tap into actually how you're feeling now. And has that had a positive impact, watching or consuming that, or has it made you feel slightly off balance, off kilter, and slightly kind of nervous and fearful? And I think it's important to just tap into that. And if you're not used to kind of acknowledging that feeling, I think it's a good idea just to really make an effort to stop whatever it is you're doing and find out if it's having any sort of impact on your being. Because we are human and we are sensitive. We have great sensitivity. And I think it's really important to look after what you put into your mind. And the same way, like being aware of what we're thinking about and questioning our thoughts. If we're really worried about something, take a moment and just really think about what it is you're worried about and why you're worried about it. Try and get to the bottom of that and try and dissect it a bit and see if you're actually worrying unnecessarily. You might be able to source back the source of your worry, where it might actually be the program you've just watched or something else, but just kind of get to the nuts of where that feeling's come from, and just kind of be with it, be with yourself, and just let it be there, and then let it pass by, and then start afresh. Take some notice of what you're consuming mentally, and I'm sure you will notice a difference in the way you will feel. It just takes a little bit of discipline, not to just consume things for the sake of it. It just takes a little bit of discipline and self-control not to go and binge on a Netflix series or do a ton of scrolling or consume a lot of bad news, So just give it a try and see if it makes you feel any better. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.